Welcome to another deep dive edition of the Chicks on the Right podcast. We are so excited because we have our old dear friend, not that you're old, but like one of our old dear friends with us today, Dinesh D'Souza, filmmaker extraordinaire. And he is back to talk about his latest film, Police State, with us. And we're super excited. We both obviously watched the film and we're like, I gotta say, very, very depressed by it. But before we sort of really jumpstart and get into all the nitty gritty about the film, we wanted you to have an opportunity to tell our audience how they can see it, because apparently there's some ways that you had tried to make it viewable for people that are no longer available to them. Tell us about that.
Well, I'm finding that the level of intolerance in the society is rising. And so, for example, my earlier films, you could buy DVDs at Amazon or Walmart, pretty standard stuff. Walmart even started out as a conservative company out of Bentonville, Arkansas. But what's happened is that you've got a lot of leftists who have now infiltrated these companies and they're involved in the purchasing process. And so they just block you. It's not that they give you a reason. They don't say, oh, the film is a banned topic, because it isn't. They don't say, oh, there's been a fact check that exposes the film as having all these errors. There's been nothing like that. There have been a couple of left-wing critiques of the film, but they haven't said anything in the film is inaccurate. So there is no rationale at all. But what they're basically saying is we're doing it because we can. And so as a result, we are selling our DVDs through Shopify, also through Salem, which is Salem Now. And the one-stop shop to stream the movie or get DVDs is policestatefilm.net. So not .com, policestatefilm.net.
Hey, did you know that Thanksgiving is like 2 weeks away? Which means that Genucel has a sale. They have a sale. Did you know that? Because you have to look good for the
good at sales.
I know. You have to look really good for the holidays because everybody judges you. See, I like staying in my house where nobody sees me. And then when I go out on the holidays, people are like, oh, look at your skin. But see, our skin looks pretty good for our age, don't you think? I think we look pretty good. And it's because of Genucel. But listen, the Genucel most popular package, it's back. It's back. It's back. You can look good for your Thanksgiving gatherings. And they have the brand new Genucel 3. It's also included in the most popular package, which it means that you're going to look like 10 or 20 years younger, guaranteed, with the best natural skincare anywhere. It's Genucel, you guys. Yeah.
They guarantee it. They even guarantee you compliments. And if you don't get compliments, I know, then you can send it back for a full refund, and nobody ever does it because everybody gets compliments and everybody loves it.
They do.
And so, you talk sale. It is a big time sale. You can go to genucel.com/chicks for this incredible holiday discounts, better than 70% off on their most popular package, which, like you said, includes the Genucel 3. It includes the dark spot corrector. It includes the immediate effect. It's got all the good stuff in it. Genucel.com/chicks. That's Genucel.com/chicks. And right now you can get free upgrade to priority shipping at checkout. It's GENUCEL.com/chicks.
That alone feeds into a lot, not a lot, but just basically what the film is about too. I mean, a lot of the different topics. My God, every time I see one of your films, I think this is the best film that he's done. And then the next one that I see, I'm like, well, this is the best one that he's done. And this is definitely the best one I think that you've done, because I was riveted the whole time. I was also, I have to admit, a little depressed. I walked away and I was like, I'm kind of sad at the state. I mean, I'm sure that wasn't your intent, but I did walk away thinking, God, what am I going to do? Because this country is in such trouble. And, we have children, and I think, God, the state of our country is in such peril. I worry so much every day for all of my children. And how are we going to turn this ship around? And it is just, we are in such a state, Dinesh, that
guys, as we're speaking, the FBI is conducting a manhunt in which they have helicopters, they have armored vehicles, they are combing the rural areas of New Jersey to find what? A serial killer? A terrorist? No. A guy who pepper sprayed the cops on January 6th of 2021. This guy, apparently, the cops were raining blows down on the protesters. This guy, almost instinctively whips out his pepper spray and blasts them. Okay, fine. There's a process to go through, but they're treating this as if it's some kind of as I say, a manhunt. The media has been notified. It's an ongoing news story. This is really police state stuff.
Yeah.
Because you and I know there's rampant criminality in our major cities. There are people being assaulted, murdered, drive-by shootings. No problem. The FBI is completely indifferent to all that anarchy. And meanwhile, this is what they spend their time on.
Gosh. So do you when you went in to make this film, were you making it hoping that you would find perhaps that it didn't need to be made, or were you like surprised even to discover how bad it's gotten? I'm curious, because obviously you thought, well, there's a reason to make this now, but you interviewed so many people. Jim Jordan was in there, Dan Bongino, so many people were in the film. Did you feel like you came out of it like, wow, this is way worse than I thought, or was it as bad as you expected?
It's more that I noticed that a lot of really bad things were happening, but they were happening in isolation. Digital censorship over here, political targeting over there, the Trump cases over here, January 6th over there. And I thought to myself, all of this is part of a single narrative. And that is that we are seeing a police state in the process of formation. Now, it's not a full-fledged police state. If it were, I grant that I couldn't have made the movie. People aren't allowed to make movies called Police State in a police state. But in a police state that's not fully there, you still have that kind of margin of freedom. And so I was like, I need to make this movie as a warning. Now, I said to myself, I want to have two kinds of guys in this movie. One, people who are whistleblowers, informants, people who know the origins, the genealogy, the architecture, the structure of this police state, how it actually works. And then the second type of guy I want in the movie is ordinary people who are kind of going about their life. And in some cases, they're just involved in some civic activity, moms who are upset about what their kids are learning in school. And then, bam, they come face to face with the police state. And so as a result, the movie has a lot of revelations about how this started, how it's organized, who's in charge of it. And then it also has kind of detailed profiles of normal Americans who find what Orwell calls the boot stamping on the human face. So I knew this was going to be a little bit of an unnerving movie, but I said, I'm a little bit like the animal in the herd, and the fellow antelopes are like grazing really lazily, and I see like a predator behind the bush. So I have to issue a warning. We can get out of this, but only if we recognize the gravity of the situation.
Yeah, it's
So
necessary.
how, though?
I think it's necessary, and I was just going to say, and I think it was imperative that you did include the normal people, because that's who spoke to me the most, especially like the moms that you had in there, because the moms with the school board, especially during the stuff with COVID and everything. Because I thought to myself, those women are me. I mean, that is me. And when she said, there was a woman that you interviewed in the movie, and she was like, that you're next. You could be next. If the FBI can tear down my door and come in and question me and do the things they did to me, they can do it to you. And I thought, oh my God, you're right. They could do that to me. They could do it to anybody. And I think it's the ordinary people. That's what the regular everyday people, that's what struck me the most. Because I think a lot of people in this country think to themselves, oh, well, that happens to other people. That happens to the important people, the elitists. It won't happen to me. But it is happening to everyday people. And I think that's what's so alarming.
Yeah, and what's also alarming, and this is kind of a subtle dimension in the film, but it's very much there. There are ordinary people who are at the FBI, and there are ordinary people who are in the DHS. So ordinary people are doing censorship, doing political targeting. It's an ordinary guy who is somehow convinced to go into the apartment of a 70-year-old grandmother and like pull her hair to the ground and twist her arms behind her back and pull her down the stairs if she resists, and sometimes yank her to the street. They've helpfully tipped off the media so they can humiliate her on the news. So I asked myself in making this film, like, how do you get a decent person to do something so vile and indecent? And the answer is really that that what the government does, what the police state does, is they never tell you the ultimate goal. Hey, we're trying to crush the spirit of this MAGA grandmother. No,
Right.
they don't say that. They just go, listen, we have an arrest, and this person is targeted for arrest. And we like to use the shock and awe so that we surprise them in the morning. They can't like go for their gun. Not that some 70-year-old grandmom is going to go for a gun. So they operationalize the procedure and they make it sound like to be successful, we want no resistance. We want this to be conducted very efficiently. And if you do, you're a good FBI man. You are one of the boys. You can feel like you're on the inside track for a promotion. There could be a bonus at the end of the year. You're going to retire with a nice pension. So all of these very mundane human motives are mobilized by the police state to produce some pretty horrific actions.
So how do you, at the end, when it sort of all culminates and you talk about the fact that, listen, we haven't crossed that red line yet. We need to work together to make sure that we don't. What would you tell people that see your movie? Because I got to say, when at the end of it, I was just like, well, that feels super hopeless. How do you motivate people or what can people do to actually combat this? Because it does seem to be happening at this really rapid pace. And it's startling, like how quickly our country is changing. So what would you tell people that they can do or how they can take action?
The two most important things that you could do, there are some individual things you can do, but like a lot of times you're dealing with a problem, and this was just as true of like election fraud. There's some things you can do. You can sign up to be a poll watcher. You can sign up to be a poll observer. So you're doing your part. But we also need to have institutional, legislative, policy type of solutions. So, for example, censorship is going to have to be stopped by the court. Now, there's a big Supreme Court case coming up next spring. I'm actually pretty hopeful they will do that. They will administer a drop kick to this kind of systematic censorship that the government is actively involved in. Some of the censorship will continue, but they're just going to withdraw the government's grubby hands from it, and that alone will be progress. I think one of the things that people can do is stiffen the spine of the Republican Party, because the Republican Party is the party that stands in the way of the police state. Now, some of them are a little bit in with the police state, I grant that. But by and large, the Republicans aren't doing it, except that they found a kind of drinking spot, if you will, in the swamp. And so as a result, they're like, okay, fine, while I'm here, I might as well take a sip. But mostly it's fear. They're afraid that they will be targeted. They're afraid of the media. So taking the invertebrates in the Republican Party and saying, guys, you actually have the power to stop a lot of this if you will only take collective joint action to do that. And then, you know what? A lot of it is spreading the word about the film, because look, people are like, well, I can't create all this messaging myself. I'm like, don't bother. I've already done it. I've created it. I've put a story together. And the power of a film, and you guys know this, I'm not telling you what you don't know, is it's a whole different thing to be told about something than to show it to you. I can tell you I grew up in India. You're like, okay, well, I know about India, but you still don't have any good idea of what my life was like until I show you some videos of me as a kid, and this was the house I grew up in, and that was the school then you're like, wow, that's really what it was like. And so a film can bring it home to you in not only an intellectual, but an emotional way. So that's been done. But the left is blocking us in all kinds of ways. And so the more that you can be a sort of an evangelist, if you will, help us push the word out, that's enormously helpful. That's something very practical that everyone can do just within your own sphere of influence.
Yeah, there's a lot packed in this film, like a whole lot. And plus, I would add to that, our Second Amendment rights, or don't ever give those up. That is also something that we can do, because a disarmed population is what they want. And if they get that, then we are screwed. That's when we are really screwed. And that was something that you really touched on at the end of the film too. That's something that I think that they're pushing for, and Democrats are constantly pushing for that. And we cannot allow that to happen. So
that was eye-opening for me, because, I come from a country where you actually don't have guns, India. And so I always thought that the real reason to have a gun is not because of what the founders said, which is the danger of tyranny, but it's like, if someone wants to do a home invasion on you, you can call the cops, but most likely the cops aren't going to get there right away. So you need to have some way in the meantime to defend yourself. But interestingly, as I began to study the degree to which you have government encroachment on our liberties, the wisdom of the founders in thinking about arming the citizens as a precaution against tyranny becomes much more real for me.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. Miriam.
I was just going to say that there was, I can't remember if it was Daily Beast or Mother Jones. I was looking at your detractors because I'm always interested after I see a movie like yours where I'm really, it's compelling to me and I'm impacted by it. I want to see, well, what are the ridiculous people saying out there? And I had to laugh that I think it was Mother Jones, the article said, well, he didn't even really touch on the actual police state, which is represented best by Breonna Taylor and George Floyd. And I was
my goodness.
What in the world? These people don't even know the definition of police state. And I could not believe that was the criticism. But at the same time, I was like, this is all they have? Are you hearing from people on the left that are at least starting to feel some of the concern? Because this affects all of us.
Yeah, now the pundits on the left, they have a line, and in fact the line is in the movie, where I say that, some of these guys, when you talk to them, they're like, oh yeah, Dinesh, there is a police state, and its symbol is Donald Trump. He is the one who is like unleashing the police agencies of the government. And of course, as you know, this is addressed in the film. I go, wait a minute. Yes, it is true that by and large, if there's a police state, the guys who are in control of those police agencies, they're the ones running the police state. So just ask yourself an honest question, whatever your politics, is Donald Trump running the police agencies of the government? Answer, no. He wasn't even doing it in his own presidency. The police agencies of the government were after him in his own term. And so I have the line in the film, I go, yeah, he's not running the police agencies. He's running away from them. They're all after him. They've got like 90 plus charges on him. So right away you see somebody else is running the police state.
Okay, so we have been using the MyPillow towels forever, like forever, ever. And now we know that the reason that the MyPillow towels are so awesome and thirsty and absorbent and wonderful is because of the Sherper cotton in them. Sherper in the MyPillow towels, the Sherper cotton. It's like, I didn't even know what that was until I was like 2 years old when I found out what Sherper was. And it's freaking awesome. They're soft, they're absorbent, they're durable, they're amazing. There's nothing like them. And MyPillow has like the 6-piece towel set, and now they're only like $29.98. You have to go to mypillow.com/chicks. Use the promo code chicks. They're awesome. Get them as gifts. Everybody loves towels. Who doesn't love them?
Up. They have all the colors.
Yeah. I mean,
all of them.
I'm a purist. I always get the white so I can bleach them. I put them in the cabin. I have them in my house. I'm a little bit weird like that. You like all the colors.
I do like colors.
Mm-hmm, you do.
I do.
But
there, no matter what color you like, whether it's white or whatever color, this is the time to get them and stock up, because $29.98 for a set of 6 towels from MyPillow, the best towels that you will ever try ever.
Amazing.
MyPillow.com/chicks. Enter code chicks at checkout. You're going to wrap yourself up in the best with the My Towels 6-piece towel set for just $29.98. MyPillow.com/chicks, and then use code Sherper.
Now, a fascinating question also mentioned in the movie is, by and large in police states, you have a kind of a grand leader, a great dictator, a face of the police state. It's Xi in China, it's the mullahs in Iran, it's Castro in Cuba. So who is running our police state? And here it gives you pause, because you realize we're in a very bizarre situation. We have a president, but this is the president who says things like, they told me I couldn't say that.
Right.
Or I'm on a schedule, or where do I exit the stage? So you've got a guy who's like in the canoe, but he's obviously not steering the canoe. Yeah. But that raises an even more disturbing question. Well, who's running the country? What's the junta that is actually whispering into the ear of Joe Biden?
Yeah, I think the word used was opaque. It's very opaque, our government right now. Our leadership right now is very opaque. And then, of course, we always ponder like I think a lot of people do. People just wonder it's Obama behind the scenes, pulling the strings. There's somebody else. We all know it's not Biden. He doesn't have the mental capacity to do it. So there's somebody else or a team of people that are probably doing that. And so you're right. It's people wonder who it is and what plan they have and what this like great reset means and all of the stuff, behind the scenes that's going on. It's all.
But I mean, if you step back and take the big picture in for a second, like what's a police state? What is the meaning of a police state? Well, you can answer that by take the most egregious examples we have abroad of a police state. China, North Korea, let's say the old Soviet Union. So what do those countries have in common? Well, they have mass surveillance of citizens. They have systematic censorship. They have ideological indoctrination and propaganda in the schools and the media. They have criminalization of political differences. They try to lock up the opposition leader. They go after religious liberty. They have political prisoners. So, wow, kind of go down that checklist and ask how many of those like 8 things do we see in America?
Yeah.
Almost all of them, and to one degree or another. And that's why this is a very legitimate topic. And in fact, even the left is reluctant to say, no, this is not a legitimate issue, because there's been a Rasmussen survey, and I got to be full disclosure. I put them up to it. I'm like, you know what? Ask the American people what they think about this. And Rasmussen did. And 2/3 of Americans or more go, yeah, this is very alarming. We do seem to be moving in the toward a police state in the way that I just defined.
Yeah, it's sad. It's sad when we start getting compared to North Korea. Like it's for real. When you had that lovely lady that was from North Korea, and when you start seeing your country, when I start seeing America being compared to North Korea, that's when I'm like, we've got to do something. This is bad.
And it seems like such an obvious time for Republicans to make some headwind, so like actually make some progress and take more seats and win more elections. And we're seeing just the opposite. What do you make of that?
The Republican Party is in such a mess. I mean, 70 Republicans, 70 in the House, just voted to give the FBI $300 million to build a spectacular new headquarters. Now, you think that if you have any leverage over this agency, where you say, listen, guys, this is unacceptable. You cannot do this to American citizens. And frankly, you're not going to get $1 for your new building. And remember, the House is in charge of appropriations. They have the power to stop this. And yet, what is it but sending the FBI a message of encouragement? And this is Republicans. And who are the targets of the FBI? Republicans. So I, in some level, I have to like wring my hands and say, wow, it's almost like you want a police state. And not only do you want a police state, you want to be the immediate target of it. Right. I mean, I cannot think of more masochistic behavior by a party if you had an ounce of intelligence. So this is, to me, perhaps the greatest frustration of all. Can we stop a police state? Yes. Now, in the end, you cannot stop it. In fact, Yeonmi Park, the North Korean refugee, said, when the jaws of the police state are locked, then you can only run. I mean, you can get out, try to get your family out. You become a refugee. But in the meantime, there are many things we can do. But the Republican Party is not doing, let's just say, a whole lot of them. And part of the point of this movie is, it's to wake up the middle, Dinesh. We need your movies to reach the middle. And I'm trying to do that. But this is a case where I also want to stiffen the resolve. And part of the way you do that is you show people that we're not in a normal state of politics. Very abnormal things are happening in the country right now. I mean, here's a small detail from the movie, and that is that right now you have air marshals. These are guys who were deployed after 9/11 to stop terrorists of the kind who blew up the World Trade Center. You have air marshals following Americans who happened to go to D.C. between January 3rd and January 7th of 2021, regardless of whether or not they went into the Capitol. In fact, regardless of whether they went to the rally. You could have been going to DC for like a realtors convention, or because you're a kid who's being reunited with your dad for the weekend. And right now, 2.5 years later, if you get on a plane to go not just to DC, anywhere, California, there's an air marshal flying with you because you have been flagged as a potential domestic terrorist. Now, do they really think that this kid is a domestic terrorist? No, but they want the kid's name in a list because then they can go to Congress and say, we're following 4,000 suspected domestic terrorists all around the country. You need to give us all these appropriations because it's part of fighting the war on terror. I mean, the whole thing is a sick joke. But one of the things you notice in a police state, a combination of viciousness and just rabid stupidity.
Yeah, and meanwhile we
That's
had
a perfect description.
Meanwhile, we just had 8 million people pour across our border illegally, and we have no idea who these people are. And they're not watching them. Nobody's watching them. Yeah, it's crazy.
Nor did our intelligence agencies with their, think of it, their almost infinite resources, their massive technological capabilities. You shouldn't be able to move 10 feet without these guys knowing about it. And 1,000 Hamas fighters are able to penetrate Israel. Not only the Israelis don't know about it, we don't know about it either. And in fact, what was it? Jake Sullivan, the national security advisor, days earlier is giving a speech on how the Middle East is as quiet as it has been in 2 decades.
You're right.
Wow.
Absolutely correct. It's astounding. Yeah.
It really, it just, oh my gosh. So I hope that people do see the film. I hope that they get motivated by it, that they get scared in order to do something, because I think that fear, unfortunately, is a motivating factor. And man, Republicans have a lot of work to do. I saw on your Twitter page that you had similar sentiments about the chairwoman of the GOP that we do, which is that she's utterly useless at this point. And just she's terrible for the party. I don't know what we can do about it, but it's bad.
Right. I mean, it'd be one thing, you always know, let's just say something terrible happens. You lose an election, you lose another election, you lose another election. And then you see that the people in charge are like, oh my gosh, this is a calamity. We have to have a crisis team. But with Ronna McDaniel, she reminds me of like one of these Buddhist monks who's sitting like on a sacred pillar, and with kind of a serene smile on her face, and her expression never changes. And I get no sense.
I think that's the Botox. I think it's the Botox, Dinesh. Yeah.
It's true though, because she nothing phases her. It doesn't matter how many, like Scott Pressler, God bless him, who should run the GOP. He's constantly pestering her about, here's what I'm doing to rally up the vote. Here's what I'm doing to register people. She ignores him completely. And at some point, like, how do we impeach her out of this position? Because she's irresponsible.
There are 270, or there's a whole bunch of members of the RNC that have the complete power to remove her. But what's happened is, and this is part of the way this corruption seeps in, what happens is that Ronna McDaniel controls a lot of money. And so, because she's the chair of the RNC, so she has gained leverage over all these members by basically saying, if you want money in your district for the election coming up, you have to be on my good side. So in a sense, she owns them. Even though they're elected at the local level, and they know that their own constituents don't want Ronna McDaniel, they are more beholden to her than they are to them.
So listen, if you are retired or you're like us and you're headed towards retirement someday at some point in your life, you got to ask yourself, is my portfolio positioned for a retirement that's successful? And since the economy sucks so hard right now, you got to be all up on the risk management part of your portfolio. It's really super important. So you got to join Bulwark Capital's Zach Abraham, who is our BFF of all things finance, for his free live webinar Thursday, November 16th, to learn how their risk management strategy and active management of portfolios can lower volatility. It's kind of a big deal. It's free, you guys. It's free. It's a free live webinar.
He is a master at that stuff.
So good.
But space is often limited because people love to do his free web seminars. They get so much attention and he gives out so much good information. So make sure, if you haven't yet, and again, it's free. There is no cost. The price is $0.
Zero.
So you can learn more, sign up for the free live webinar. All you have to do is go to knowyourriskradio.com. Again, space is limited, fills up fast. Knowyourriskradio.com. That's knowyourriskradio.com. And don't forget, investment advisory services are offered through Trek Financial LLC, an SEC registered investment advisor.
It's a little bit like a congressman who has from a rural district, and he knows my rural district does not want us to send tens of millions of dollars to Ukraine. But this guy also knows that Raytheon and Boeing and these defense contractors, which are getting hundreds of billions of dollars and can funnel large amounts of money to this guy's re-election campaign, far more than, Joe or Tommy can give him $20 or $50. Which would you rather get, Joe's $20 or $50 or Raytheon's $250,000 contribution to your re-election campaign? So now you know who owns these guys.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Dinesh, it's depressing as hell and also awesome to talk to you again.
Oh my gosh, totally. And listen, people need to realize too that we have to turn this around because we're the last place. We're the last beacon on the hill, right? I mean, there is no place else to go. So we can't be like that sweet North Korean lady that you interviewed because we can't escape. There's no
She
place
could escape
else.
to here.
Right.
And she knows that there's no place else to go. So, but however, the first place to go, this may come as a surprise to you guys, BelizeStateFilm.net. That's an excellent place to
Go
start.
there.
Because that is the storyline. And look, there's people who watch the film, they go, I knew about this, I knew about that. But what we do is we put it all together, make it make sense.
Yep.
And I got to say, the recreations in the movie are really good. We hired a couple of FBI consultants, so we would get the language right, the weaponry right, the whole staging of it right. I wanted people who are in the DOJ to go to this film and go, wow, that's exactly how that would have gone down.
It's a really great film, Dinesh.
It
really,
is.
really
People
great.
need to see it for sure. Thank you so much for being with us. Don't be a stranger. Let's have you back. What are you going to do next, or are we allowed to know? Is anything on the horizon?
I'll cook up something for next year. I don't know yet. I'm so focused on this, as often happens. For a month or two, I'm hunkered down. But love to come back and talk some more about it when I'm ready with the next project.
That would be great. It was great to see you.
Then. Thanks, Dinesh.
Okay, guys.